Okay. Wendy Buglio, thank you so much for agreeing to chat today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, Wendy, I wanted to start off by having you talk a little about your business, how you got into the general arena of working with seniors. I know that's not all that you do, but it sounds like a growing part of your business. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, talk a little about that. How did you get into this senior move business?
Sure. I started my career on my own, kind of took a leap of faith 18 years ago and started a organizing business at the time. I was focused on primarily residential organizing, helping people declutter, worked a lot with neurodiverse individuals, people with ADHD, things like that. And then over the years, my business grew as demand grew, and I acquired a company from a friend and a colleague that had a team. So then I had a team um, business starting in 2015. And so we were able to kind of scale up and do some larger projects then. And then I think, like a lot of people, when the pandemic hit, we really tried to pivot and modify our business to meet the demand. And for us, the demand here in Boston was a lot of moving projects. People were moving out of their urban setting homes out for more space, needing to rethink their living space. And that part of our business has just taken off exponentially since 2020. So I would say we still have a foothold in the traditional organizing world, and we're move managers as well.
Well, so that's great. Let me kind of piggyback on that a little bit in terms of what you see as the trends, and then maybe we'll get into what does it mean when we say senior moves, and what does that mean for the kinds of work you do and the approach and so on. But from a trend standpoint, you mentioned that business has kind of taken off.
Yeah.
I think everyone's seen the statistics at this point, and I'm probably getting a little bit wrong, but something like 20,000 people a day for the next, 11, 12 years are going to turn 65, according to the US Census. And so clearly there's some demand there. But overall, besides that general number, is there something going on, wealth transfer? What is it that is causing that rush, if you will, within the senior market?
Yeah, for sure. It's the growth of the boomer demographic. And I think a senior move isn't what people maybe think it is always, right? This doesn't necessarily mean we're sending mom to the nursing home. There's lots of different ways that a senior is looking to downsize, right size, simplify their lives, move into a second home. There's all kinds of different ways that senior moves happen. And the definition of a senior is very, very different than I think what a lot of people consider. And so I quickly realized that a lot of our client base were actually senior moves, whether people were staying in place and wanting to simplify or renovate their homes to be able to age in place long term, or looking for um, a less expensive place to live maybe, and downsizing their family home and moving somewhere more simple where they can travel and do all the things that are going to be happening for them in the next part of their lives. It's really it runs the gamut, I think. And a lot of what we do is understanding that no single senior move is the same as another. And they all require creativity and flexibility and coming up with a plan that works for each individual.
And you mentioned the different, I guess, places that people are going.
Hmm.
One of the things that I've noticed is that there is a very, it seems like anyway, there's a very distinct push for people to move into what I'll call sort of independent living communities. And there are some huge developers that are responsible for hundreds of different communities across the country. Um, is that a different situation than you're seeing, or are you doing some of that as well, moving people into those communities?
Oh, for sure. We're seeing a lot of those, and they're popping up all over the place, and they're beautiful. These places, a lot of these places are really trying to cater to that active lifestyle that people are looking for. And so you no longer have the, management concerns over taking care of your aging home. you can go live in a condo-like environment. And some of them have individual cottages even, right? So I've done all kinds of different moves into different places like that that really work well, and they become a home base. And my clients are very active. They're traveling to visit family. They're going to Europe. They're doing all the things they want to do without the management needs of like, okay, we've got to, do some maintenance here around this house that we've owned for 30 years.
Right.
So it's definitely a lifestyle shift that I'm seeing that people are eager to do earlier than perhaps the previous generation was.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It seems like that trend may have started off in maybe a slightly different way at the villages in Florida, which of course
Yes.
everybody is aware of. But but those are single family. You classify, I think, as single family homes. They're not. It's not the condo approach. And I think what I'm seeing, and it sounds like what you're referencing too, is that many, if not all, of the development companies, they're not so much concentrating on the single family homes. There certainly are plenty of those, but this sort of cottage condo, moving into the building where you have the option, by the way, of transitioning into assisted living if that becomes necessary.
Right. Yeah. The really great places have that continuum of care potential. And so whatever you're ready for at this stage, you can find. And so it means finding that community that you really resonate with, that you want to be a part of, and being able to age there gracefully and have all the facilities that you're going to need long term is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So now that we've kind of set the stage for kind of what the business potential is out there with all of these folks moving into these various communities, maybe to be closer to children, et cetera, et cetera. What about the definition, if you will, and I know there isn't maybe one definition, but of senior moving. So what is it when we say that? What kinds of things are we talking about that are maybe different than, for example, what Olympia does on a daily basis? Actual moving company. That's not really what we're talking about when we say senior moving, or if you are a senior move manager, which you are,
Mhm.
being part of the National Association for Senior Move Managers. What are the differences between that and regular moving, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think a senior move manager is involved in more aspects of your relocation than just the day of the packing and the moving and the unpacking, the logistics of the move. And I don't mean to say just. I'm trying to take just out of my language, by the way, because it's a word that sort of downplays effort. But let's say beyond the actual labor of physically moving you from point A to point B, what we do is get involved, ideally pretty early on. Like I want the phone to ring when you're even starting to think about it. Like, I might be leaving in 2 to 3 years. I want to be a part of that conversation because there's so much that goes into what is this going to look like for your life moving forward, and what are the things what are your belongings and things that are important to you that you want to bring with you into the next chapter, and what do you not need, right? So it's the sort of the evaluation of your belongings and what's important to you, and helping rehome things that aren't going to come with you. And all that takes time and effort, and thinking through what an ideal move plan looks like for you. What's the right time of year? What's the right time of a month, even, in terms of what feels right for your relocation. Partnering with your realtor if you're going to be selling the home you've been living in for many years. What kind of work does that need to get it ready for the market? So there's all kinds of sort of logistics that go into thinking through the transition from point A to point B and beyond that we love to be a part of. So we get pretty involved in our clients' lives. We get to know them on a pretty intimate level, family dynamics, what kind of help and support do you have or not have? And we're in there every step of the way, down to like vacuuming and making the bed if you want us to before we leave, right? So it really runs the gamut, and our services are very kind of scalable depending on what a client's looking for. But it's that relationship that goes a longer term, I think.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that juxtaposed with the job of the moving company, Olympia, for example,
Yeah.
we work with you on a regular basis on some of your clients' needs. How do those two things interact? So you're taking care of all of that kind of upfront and ongoing work to get the client in a position to even be able to move out of their home, let's say, and into another place. How does the moving company fit in at that point?
Well, they're such an important partner in this conversation, right? I can go into pretty much any situation now and have the confidence that I know we can make this happen because I've got the team of Olympia at my back in terms of knowing the skills and knowledge that you have for all different types of relocations and special equipment needed and things that come up. So it's very much a give and take. So I like to start early. I'll have a conversation with Eddie in sales, and he and I will brainstorm together on what does a good move plan look like for this client. And that's going to include timing, services needed, packing, unpacking, all those logistics. And together we collaborate well before a quote goes to the client so that when the client gets the quote, I'm intimately familiar with what the plan is. It's in line with how I'm going to be working with the client ahead of time. And that makes it really easy for the client to understand that we're in partnership and that we're in lockstep and working on this together. And I can usually answer a lot of their questions because Eddie's taught me a lot over the years. So I can usually answer the questions, or we pull Eddie in for a conversation if needed. And then on, the day of, what's wonderful is, my team's gotten to know kind of not only know the crews and the people on the crews, but like how they want to work and how they want to be most efficient in the day. We think like a mover on moving day. So we're trying to be a step ahead of what they're going to be doing next. So if they're working their way through the house, I kind of know, okay, the next room up for grabs is going to be that bathroom, and we haven't finished, sorting in there. Let's make sure we get in there next ahead of when they're. So it means that the move is more efficient and happening the way it's supposed to. And we're there kind of making sure everyone's being taken care of. Our clients, sometimes they're not even there. Sometimes they're like, I'm going to peace out for the day and let you manage this. Sometimes they're there. It's up to them, obviously. But, is everybody fed, hydrated, stress levels are low? Are there any issues coming up that we need to address head on? Make sure we're discussing, managing expectations along the way. All those unexpected curveballs that come up on moving day, we're able to stay ahead of. And so that's the beauty of the relationship of working together so many times over and over again, as we've really come into like a nice dance, really, of how we work together on moving day. So that's the beauty of it, I think.
Absolutely. And I know that when we move into, for example, some of the senior living communities, to your point, there's rules and regulations, and for us as a moving company to be able to know some of these things, like for example, it seems obvious, but you're not going to get a tractor trailer into a senior living community. It's got to be done on a straight truck.
Right.
Um, each community has its own rules. There's certain places, even with your straight truck, you can park, and other places you can't. There's the hours, you got to get the whole thing done in X amount of time, and you've got slots because other people are moving in and out. Yeah, all of those things, I think, to your point, as you create that partnership, make it much more smooth.
Right. Well, and the crews are fantastic. Obviously, I choose to work with Olympia for a reason, but I can be there to help. Like, okay, we got an elevator backup. I did a job with Olympia a few weeks ago when we were moving into an assisted living place, and there was one elevator out and the other one was functioning. And we happened to load up in the morning and arrive to the destination like at lunchtime. And so residents are trying to get up and down to the cafeteria for lunch, and we're trying to wheel stuff in, right? So I've got two very different agendas going on, right? The movers are obviously trying to be respectful, but also like efficient, right? So I ended up kind of running the elevator. And it was like, okay, group of residents on for lunch and, swapping around. So I'm able to kind of step into those moments and help create a flow. And the guys really appreciate that because they're not having to do that as much. And, it just smooths things over and makes it a little bit better for everyone. So Yeah, all those logistics that come up when you're moving into a place, certificates of insurance and where to park and security and making sure we're not leaving stuff in the hallways, which the guys are great about, and keeping passageways clear and all of that all goes into it. There's a lot.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Let me switch back just real quick to we kind of talked about what's going on now and sort of some of the trends that are responsible for an increase in this type of business. But are there some other trends? I mean, right now we see that interest rates are not particularly cooperating with everybody,
Yeah.
and yet this group seems somewhat insulated from that based on the fact that maybe they have savings put away. They're at a time in their life when they're not overly concerned about how much money they're going to have in the future, all that kind of stuff. What do you see as the trends beyond this over the next 5 years, 10 years? Is it going to keep up like this, or do you think something's going to change?
I think that there's still demand for inventory in the real estate market. I think there are price tiers. I am seeing some of the higher, I would just define as higher end here in the Boston market, homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer than people had anticipated. And so that is just worth noting and planning around. If you're in a position where you don't have to sell in order to make your next move, that's great. That means we can design a move plan that works for you around timing that works for you, and the house will sell. It will sell when it sells. So having some patience with some of those higher end listings. But under a certain threshold, and I'm not a real estate expert, they're still selling like crazy, at least here in Boston. And I think that's true in other markets as well. I think that's going to continue. I think, the millennials are a powerful buying audience. They are looking for quality homes. They have the income. They're ready to be buying. And there's a lot of demand. So I think the homes are going to continue to turn over in a way that's not going to change. And yes, I think this audience, the seniors that are relocating, are somewhat insulated from some of those market trends. But it all comes down to where you are, location, price, timing. But working with a really skilled agent can help position you for the best success when it comes to relocating from your current home.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, great. Thank you so much, Wendy Buglio of Wendy Buglio Consulting.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing our fruitful partnership.
Awesome. Thanks so much, AJ. Really fun to chat with you today about all this.
Absolutely.